This is Sony's brand new flagship camera, the a1ii Mark II, and while it is arguably one of the best cameras you can buy if you want amazing quality for both photos and videos, when it comes to the video capabilities in particular, this camera has some very stiff competition from multiple other camera manufacturers, some of which have started to surpass Sony in some areas, which has really led me to question, is the a1 Mark II enough of an upgrade? In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the a1 II from the perspective of a wedding filmmaker and telling you how it stacks up against the competition. And side note, by the way, if you want to know the best gear that I recommend for wedding filmmaking, I've created a gear guide that will show you all of the cameras, lenses, and accessories that you need. This guide is completely free and you can download it in the video description. Also, for the sake of ethics, I want you to know this video is not paid or sponsored by Sony, and this camera is on loan from them and will be, sadly, returned to them very soon. Anyways, looking at the a1 II, out of the box, it feels more like this camera was made to bring up the a1 line of cameras to their modern design standards, not necessarily completely reinventing the style and look of the camera. I'll admit, I was kind of hoping for a bigger upgrade in the body, something like the jump from the a7 II to the a7 III, but instead this feels much more like a refinement of its features with the greatest hits of other Sony cameras all bundled into this one, just like the a9 III. The a1 II does away with the rather dated tilt-only screen from the original a1 and now includes the much-loved flipping and tilting screen that was originally introduced with the a7R5. That said, this screen feels even more refined to me than I remember the a7R5 feeling. It's smoother to use and articulate, and it doesn't feel fragile at all. It's just a fantastic screen. Looking at the rest of the camera, it feels very similar to the a9 III overall, and I'm not really seeing any other differences, and that's not a bad thing. The a9 III has a fantastic body, and this one does too. So otherwise, this is very much a situation of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I like the refinements Sony has made to the a1 II overall in regards to its body, especially with the screen. Going inside the camera now, this is where the greatest hits theme continues, but in a way that is arguably more negative for filmmakers, but let's start with a positive. The original a1 already had fantastic video quality, with a full-frame sensor capable of filming in S-Log3 in 8K resolution at up to 30 frames per second and 4K resolution at up to 120 frames per second. With the a1 Mark II, Sony kept that same video quality from the a1 II with basically the same sensor, while adding features that were in their other cameras, but missing from the original a1. Features like the S-Cinetone picture profile, an AI processing chip, which dramatically improves autofocus, and user LUT support where you can install custom color presets to the camera. Side note, by the way, if you want your S-Log3 footage to look amazing, I have a set of color presets that I've created that look absolutely incredible with the footage filmed from all Sony cameras and that work with this user LUTs feature as well. I will link to these color presets down in the video description for you to check out. Now, as a brand new feature exclusive to the a1 Mark II, Sony also added the ability for the camera to automatically detect what it's focusing on and change the autofocus type to suit the subject. It's really cool and it works really well. This is easily the best autofocus that I've ever seen from a Sony camera, or really any camera for that matter. In addition, this camera also has the best image stabilization that I've seen in a Sony camera, capable of up to 8.5 stops of stabilization, which in the real world as a filmmaker means that you can walk around in active mode with the camera, and while it won't be quite as stable as a gimbal, it makes filming handheld with it very easy and smooth, especially if you need to get some smooth moving shots very quickly. Just be aware that some of the most powerful stabilization modes are not available when filming in 8K, which is definitely a bummer. And speaking of being a bummer, this is where we need to get into the negatives. From an overall video capability standpoint, the a1 II sadly feels a bit stagnant. We'll use that word. The vast majority of these video features are completely identical to the original a1, and this is really concerning to me because the a1 Mark II is meant to be Sony's flagship, capable of doing everything to the maximum of their camera's capabilities. But as far as video goes, it's barely an improvement over the a1. This concerns me because whenever Sony gets around to releasing an a7S IV or FX3 Mark II, let's say, in the past, the a1 was considered an upgrade over the FX3 and a7S III, but I don't know if that's going to hold true for the A1 Mark II because it's not really a major upgrade over the original A1, and so I would hope that the FX3 Mark II would be a significant upgrade over the original FX3, but if it follows with the A1 II not being a huge upgrade from the A1, it wouldn't be a big difference. Now, when I talk about what sort of upgrades I would have ideally wanted to see with the A1 II, you're probably wondering what kind of upgrades I'm talking about, because you could very easily argue that Sony is at the top of their game right now when it comes to creating cameras. They're one of the most popular options available for filmmakers today, so many of my friends film with Sony and they build such a great camera package. What the heck could Sony actually improve? Well, this is where I feel like things are a little stagnant when it comes to Sony, because taking things in a vacuum and just looking at Sony, yeah, they are crushing it. But whenever you look at Sony's competition and what they're doing, there are definitely some cracks starting to show in Sony's armor. For example, let's talk raw video. At this point, there are no Sony mirrorless cameras capable of recording raw video internally. To be clear, you can still very easily record raw video externally to a monitor, like an Atomos using ProRes RAW, and Sony has worked with Blackmagic to introduce external Blackmagic RAW recording coming to their cameras and Blackmagic video monitors in a firmware update later in 2025. But then you look at literally all of Sony's competition, and when it comes to internal raw video, it's glaringly obvious that Sony's starting to fall behind. Look at Nikon. They created their own in-RAW codec and have put it in all of their new mirrorless cameras, giving you the ability to not only record raw video with a flagship like the Z9, but also the Z8 and the $2,200 Z6 III as well, with the Z9 and Z8 recording 8K at 60 FPS RAW and the Z6 III 6K 60 FPS RAW. It's really impressive, and anytime I've used these Nikon cameras, I've loved filming with them. Nikon is really killing it when it comes to internal RAW. Oh yeah, and Nikon also bought Red, the company that was really the first to offer digital cameras capable of recording raw video. You know they're going to keep improving on this and merging Red and Nikon together, and I would bet very soon we see a Red camera with a Nikon lens mount, or a Redcon, or a Niked. I don't know what we're going to call it, okay? But it's going to be something like that. It's going to be really, really awesome. Nikon's doing some great stuff. Then you have Canon, who has been putting internal raw video into their cameras for quite a while now, and they've continued to improve it. While I don't know a ton of filmmakers filming with Canon cameras in RAW, it's still great that they even offer this feature, and I remember they offered it way back in 8K RAW recording with the R5 back in 2020. Heck, let's look at Panasonic too. Panasonic is a company that has offered external RAW recording like Sony for a long time, but with the introduction of the GH7 in mid-2024, Panasonic included internal ProRes RAW recording with that camera. No external monitor required. And you can't tell me that Panasonic would just enable internal RAW recording for the GH7. I would bet so much money that all of their future cameras, especially the full-frame ones, will have internal RAW recording as well. Now imagine pairing that internal RAW recording with open gate recording, which is another video feature that Sony has not added to their cameras yet, and Panasonic is going to be making some really compelling cameras in the future that compete very well with Sony. So when you look across the, let's call it internal RAW video recording landscape from different camera manufacturers, this is where Sony really starts to falter, because this is a feature that all of their competition is offering, but they've been silent on. And when you look at the A1 Mark II and consider this is meant to be the flagship camera capable of the highest level of video quality, the lack of internal RAW recording is a glaring omission in my opinion, and I was frankly shocked that it wasn't included in some way in this camera. Next, let's talk audio. While I have not had any complaints about the audio quality that really any Sony camera has been capable of recording since I first started using them with the FS100 way back in 2012. There's a flashback for you. I was really hoping that with the A1 II, Sony would take some inspiration from Panasonic, because when Panasonic introduced the GH7 in mid-2024, one of that camera's claim to fame was that it was the world's first camera capable of recording 32-bit float audio internally to the camera. Granted, to unlock this 32-bit float internal recording capability, you had to purchase a new XLR hot shoe adapter for the camera, but if you consider that that hot shoe adapter didn't cost much more than a comparably priced external 32-bit float audio recorder, and then you would also have the capability of having your video file with 32-bit float audio already attached to it, no syncing in post required, It made the extra purchase of this XLR adapter a no-brainer, in my opinion. Now, at least at the time of recording this video, no other camera company has included 32-bit float audio recording internally with their cameras, but if there was ever one company that would do it, I would have bet that it would have been Sony. They would have moved quickly to compete, added this feature, especially with their flagship top-of-the-line camera. Overall, the internal features of the A1 Mark II leave it in a rather difficult position. It easily takes the crown as Sony's flagship most expensive mirrorless camera. But as I've shown you, because it has many of the same video features that the original had when it was released 3 years ago, the A1 II has started to really fall behind its competition, which has caught up to it in many ways and even surpassed it. And if this is the absolute best that Sony has to offer, I'm not overly enthusiastic about their future cameras. But hey, I would love to be proved wrong. So, should you buy the A1 Mark II? With the original A1, it was a pretty simple value proposition, because if you wanted the absolute best Sony camera capable of filming in 8K and taking phenomenal photos, your choice was between this camera and the a7R5. But with the A1 II, on the other hand, it does have some nice upgrades, especially in regards to the screen and autofocus capabilities. But from a video quality standpoint, it is incredibly similar to the original A1, meaning that if you want an 8K filming Sony camera, you may be better off looking at a dramatically discounted A1 or an a7R5. I really hope this video has been helpful to you if you're considering getting the A1 Mark II, especially for filmmaking, because I want to help you out even more as a wedding filmmaker too. I want you to know that I've put together a free workshop that's going to help you book your next wedding in 30 days or less. This workshop is completely free and you can download it at the link down in the video description. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe if you want to see more videos about filmmaking, cameras, editing, etc. And have a great day.